When the first wind blew, it was but a cool respite from a warm summer. When the second came, it was but a show of the displeasure of Ain. When the 10th wind blew, the bounty of the waves flourished, for us and for them. But with 50, summer ceased. The 72nd wind emptied the Norgal Dale. Seeds lay dead in frozen soil. 100 after the first, the deeps began to stir. While our farms crumbled and our cities emptied, they flourished in their watery kingdoms, blessed by Ain's departure. Their first strike was fierce but unprepared. Our joined might returned them to the sea for a time. 145. The Polynastians flood into Dayorn. 147. The outlying islands are taken. 148. The second attack begins. Refugees become unwelcome. 203. The walls of Dayorn begin to rise. 257. The adamantine walls are finished. 289. Orav Na sent his greatest gift. Food from nothing, life from nothing. A weapon against Ain's will, against our cold damnation. But the Elm Winds had long eroded good faith, and the lords and sages saw only themselves, and closed the adamantine gates. And now we, the betrayed and beset, stand us outside the sealed gates to paradise, abandoned by Ain, abandoned by kings, and those in the deep still stir. Hey everyone, I today am going to be going back to kind of like my roots in a way of talking about one of the worlds that I do for D&D. I've been meaning to do kind of like a ramble about this, because like soft-spoken rambles is kind of how partially that and like roleplays are how this channel got started, so yeah. So I'll be talking about the campaign setting that I've made. It's not the most common one that I've run. That is definitely the most one I've had, like the most sessions I've done in a campaign is definitely generic RPG. But Elm Coast is one that I've run a few campaigns in. None of them really took off. But part of this is that I'm actually about to start a new campaign in this world, and honestly, part of this video is also for myself to like kind of like recollect my thoughts and kind of as I were here to like write like the first arcs of the story, and I got like part of like the backstories of the characters, and the players are getting that in, so I'm preparing the first few adventures and getting all that ready. So yeah, so the Elm Winds is kind of like the name of this setting that I call. It is like, what is it, like I said in like my world building video, is that like have every world you should have like kind of like a premise or like quirk or gimmick that the world is based on, and that you can sum up in a short phrase. And for this one, this is the world of slow apocalypse. I have a little blurb that like is like my initial like, here players, here's to like get you started about thinking about like kind of like the base situation and the whole premise of the world. Over the past 250 years or so, the world has been getting much colder. It wasn't thought of much at first, but after a couple decades, it began to be a significant problem. The growing seasons grew shorter and shorter, and as such, food in all but a few regions had started to become scarce. Now much of the northern lands have become barren, save a few hardy forests and what little wildlife remain. Floods of refugees have been moving south to warmer lands, or at least lands that are not frozen year-round. And that area moves south every year. pushing those on the northern border of civilization ever southward. Hundreds of abandoned frozen towns and cities dot this barren wasteland, and even those are starting to be swallowed up by the glaciers that creep down south. But while the people in the land struggle for food and space, the ocean life has experienced a massive bloom with the falling temperatures. It's like, scientifically, it's like with winter upwelling that, like, when it gets cold and stuff, and like Arctic temperatures actually help, like, promote algae growth and stuff like that. Never mind. What started as a boost to fish and other sea life populations have now become an unprecedented era of expansion and conquest for the underwater civilizations. Sea elves, merfolk, and darker things in the deep. They have begun to clash with many coastal settlements, raiding for much-needed terrestrial resources, such as metal tools and weapons. The story begins on the Elm Coast, a large coastline with many dotted islands right against the growing cold. The Elm Coast region is dominated by the Kingdom of Vorin. It's an elective monarchy ruled by 4 major merchant houses. The realm is divided into 5 grand principalities, each one ruled by the head of one of the major houses, as well as the final one, Dayorn, under the control of the current controller of the crown. Apart from the overarching legislation and rulings from the crown and the upper and lower councils, the principalities function relatively autonomously, even occasionally warring with each other for trade posts and shipping lines. The upper council, primarily known as the Council of Ghosts, is comprised of 9 members, 2 from each house, and a final member chosen by the current ruler, typically the ruler's eldest child. While the upper council does have the power to enact legislation, it rarely does so. Its main purpose is the selection of the next ruler when the current one dies. While there is nothing that demands the elected be on the upper council, it has never happened in the history of Vorin that they have not. The lower council is comprised of 19 members, 2 representatives from each house, 1 representative of the crown, usually a sibling, a child, or other close family member, and 1 from each of the 10 minor houses in Vorin. The lower council is primarily involved in day-to-day operations and legislation, international trade agreements, resolving inter-house conflicts, general upkeeps of the armies, and things like that. So there are, I have more details like on each of the 4 houses. There's House Norlith, House Orgnar, House Calbarin, and the Calganate Fayorn. Calganate Falyorn, that's how it is. The Calganate is this like composition of like many minor houses rather than being like a single house, but they like act as a single house. So that's kind of like the political setup being like, this setting has like a lot of potential for like political intrigue and like infighting and things like that. That this world is really kind of like how I built it is like really rooted in this like conflict of both the strange resources of this kingdom, as well as like having to deal with like the huge refugee crisis, as well as like the external threats of the Sea Elf and Merfolk empires that are encroaching onto their land, and like clashes with that. So there's a lot of like room for a lot of very different campaigns in this one. Like the one I'm about to do is very much looking to be a one that's based around kind of like this whole like root idea of the rooted in the nobility and a lot of like political intrigue, with a lot of the because one of the main characters is this professor who is kind of like doing research about ways to help defend the capital city of Redhelm. Not Redhelm, it's the capital of Dayorn. It has a name. I forget off the top of my head. I have a map somewhere I need to find. But, yeah. So I might actually just remake the map for this campaign, because I didn't actually super love that map. If I make it by the time this video comes out, I'll post a link in the description somewhere or something. But yeah. But, where was I? but they're kind of like defending the city, and that like has like things there, but they're going to be caught up in political squabbles. They don't know that yet, so don't tell them. If you're watching this, I don't think you are, but stop watching this because there might be spoilers, or there might not. This is mostly world information that you can know anyway. But there's that. I had another campaign that was all about like pirates, and it was like a shorter one, but like they ran a pirate ship out in like the outlying islands, like on the fringes of Vorin, and things like that. There was another campaign, and then there was another one that was kind of like more on like the local side and like on the coastline and helping defend villages there, but that one didn't last very long. So yeah, so that's kind of like, there's a lot of like neat like things to explore, and it's not like a singular plotline world like generic RPG is, because it's like, also generic RPG has its like own restraints in terms of story and things like that. So yeah, so that's kind of like that. The Gods of the Realm is a unique pantheon because I like designing pantheons, and I have blurbs on all of them. So the universe's 6 living gods worshipped by mortals. In addition to these, there are many other powerful entities that grant divine magic to their followers, but these are the 6 true gods and the most widely worshipped. Only Nera has a universal church. All the other gods are worshipped by people in one land independently of worshippers and clergy in other lands, and even those vary in size, from Kel having a large handful of large influential denominations, to Alim, who does not have a formal church structure anywhere in the cosmos. Non-clergy do not hold particular strong ties to any given church, and also often worship 2 or 3 of the gods in different circumstances. The gods are mysterious and many-faceted. A particular church or follower typically hones in on one or a few aspects of the deity, both in alignments and portfolio. So we're dealing with very distant gods. These gods, like, they grant like divine power, but it's not really directly. They don't really speak to their followers. Like, they have some agents like angels and like other power entities that like might speak for them, but it is almost unheard of for them to directly communicate with mortals. It's like one of those things that only happens in like the like ancient legends and things like that. So and because they're so distant, none of them have a single alignment, and they each have a spectrum of alignments that like their clerics can be and things like that. So and there's lots of like a potential for clashes within the churches themselves. So first up we have Ain, the Lord of the Sky, who is lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good, and true neutral. And I also have like domains for all of them, but we don't need to worry about that for if you care about like that for like 3.5. And I guess I actually haven't set up 5e domains for all of them. I should do that. But this campaign is actually being run under 4e, which is really exciting because I like 4e, and I'm excited to do this campaign. I haven't done a 4e campaign in years. So, Ain, Lord of the Sky. The champion deity of the common folk, Ain is said to watch over all peoples under the sky. His favor brings bountiful harvests in the fields and safe winds at sea. He is the patron of the healers, the farmers, the humanitarians, and the simple, kind-hearted. He is perhaps the only deity who will find both the zealous paladins and the detached druids alike among his devout. Then Nera, the Order, who is lawful good, lawful neutral, and lawful evil. Civilization brings order. Order brings peace. Peace brings prosperity. This is central to the teachings of Nera, whose followers see themselves as the bulwark against the chaos and dangers of the wilderness. Community is power. Her followers use this power. How her followers use this power varies greatly, from the promotion of justice and prosperity of all to using the force of civilization to drive oneself to the top. Her temples are many, and her church's hierarchy united like no other organization ever to exist. Then we have Telneus, the Emperor of Gnarled Flesh, who is all the evil alignments. Pain, suffering, fear, and death are keys to the universe. The weak suffer because they are nothing. Everyone must either create suffering or else endure it themselves. War is the instrument of liberation, freeing the dying world from the unworthy and pitiful. The Emperor smiles at your pain and is pleased when you laugh at those who suffer below you. Greed and wrath are everywhere, in everyone. Unlock it, in yourselves and those around you. Then the Emperor shall be pleased. Oravna, the mystic of a vermilion wind, who is neutral, and then all the ones that like are around like neutral. So neutral good, lawful neutral, true neutral, chaotic neutral, neutral evil. The cosmos are knowable. The balance between chaos and order tugging away at the fabric of the universe, the distant closeness between tears and laughter, the true nature of good and evil. The gods did not create this universe. Oravna is the manifestation, though, of a single question. Why? Central to the teachings of Oravna is the idea that nothing should exist at all. The natural state of being should be non-existence, but it isn't. The eon-long quest for the answer drives Oravna and his followers to unravel the cosmos, piece by piece. At the center of it all is the force of magic, a force that is older than reality itself. The churches of Oravna teach to seek knowledge at any and all costs. All mortals are thrust into the void. Why not learn all one can about a realm one is certain to go to? The purpose of the universe is for it to understand itself. Kel, the Corrupter, who's chaotic neutral, neutral evil, and chaotic evil. The elves were the first to hear the Queen of Lies and her promise of power. Then came the gnomes, maddening, taunting voices just out of earshot. The dwarves in delusions of riches and glory, and the Ortelm felt an axe chipping away at their cherished serenity. And down, down they went, deep into the earth. The drow now rule from their hall of spiders, seeking to turn the rest of their estranged kin. The Snifneblin, sanity taken by the darkness, and the Durgar digging ever deeper, ever further from what they came from. And the orcs, all that remains of a once proud race of refined mages of poets, now turned to savagery. This is Kel. And finally we have Elm, freedom, who is neutral good, true neutral, and chaotic neutral. Every soul who takes charge of their destiny is a prophet of Elm. If you aren't meant to walk to the horizon, why are we given eyes to see it and feet to get to it? The teachings of Elm focus on the self, but not in a selfish sense. Elm suggests, but does not command, to ask all people two questions. Am I secure in my own freedom? And am I a threat to others' freedom? How to respond to these questions, Elm teaches us up to you. To tell you otherwise would be hypocritical. Elm is found on the wide open seas and distant foggy mountains, in the dust of a robe and in a forbidden love's kiss. Elm is in everyone whose heart beats free and eyes widen. So those are the 6 gods. I try not to make them direct, I don't like to do sometimes worlds work where you have gods that are directly polar opposites, but I try to make these very balanced and asymmetrical in that way, even though it's an even number of gods, which is it's tempting to have those parallels when you have an even number of gods. So, but I tried to do that. You can tell there's a lot of influences in different ones. Ain takes in a lot of the aspects of Palor and but also takes in Melora and some of the other gods. Kel was an expansion onto Lolth and other things. So I did they each are grown from a lot of the base D&D gods. But then I kind of like specializing that, or not specializing, but like widening them and like kind of making them a bit more ambiguous. Honestly, the gods are probably what I've like most from this campaign, and I think the churches and the characters that come out of it are like really neat, and there's a lot of like cool things you can do with them. So one thing I do when a character like makes it, I tell like, what aspects are you focusing on? Like, you want to be a cleric of Nera. What parts of that are you going to? Like, write like the creeds that you're upholding and things like that. So, a lot of cool things in that sense that I really like in the gods of this campaign. But yeah, so like the Elm Winds is really just like this story about, it's a lot more, it's probably my most serious campaign I have. Like, it's just in stark contrast to like generic RPG, which is like all about fun and stuff. Like, this isn't supposed to be super serious. Like, the campaign setting is this very like kind of like dealing with serious topics and whatnot, but it isn't meant to be like overly dramatic all the time, where like this is the backdrop. And but even though it's like this like kind of like serious backdrop, like it's probably going to be a bit more comical of a campaign, just with like those themes as like, yeah, the backdrop of it. Like, two of the characters are honestly just, they're brothers who just want to open up a pie shop, which is like this like fun like lighthearted kind of thing, and really has like a lot of potential. So I really like this game world. One day I might actually write up like actual proper like campaign setting documents for like some of my campaigns, and like not publish, but like put out there for if people want to use them. I definitely want to do one for generic RPG because I love generic RPG. I'll eventually do a video on generic RPG, but it's like, that one actually has so much lore and so much into it that like I'll probably take multiple videos to get through everything about it. But yeah, so it's also kind of a different one because like generic RPG is like a lot less about what you do and more how you do it. So yeah, so I think that's about it, all I have to say about kind of like the Elm Winds and what I have so far. Like, that's kind of like this setting and the background. Like, I can go into specifics, like talking about Vorin and the world and things like that. But that's kind of like the high level, like, this is the world, this is the setting, this is the premise. This is honestly what I give to my players in terms of just like documents and stuff. For like, hey, this is how you want to start, get thinking, like tell me what your character wants and things like that. So yeah. Yeah, no, that's about it. All I have to say. And I hope you enjoy this kind of like more relaxed kind of format for a video. I haven't been doing much of like these kind of like super casual videos. One day it won't be so hot, but yeah. I hope you all have a wonderful night and sleep well. And may your stories smile upon you.